All right, so just an interesting thought I had. I was thinking about how, like, creatively, sort of like when we're children, we sort of get shut down by, perhaps like adults or peers, when we're like doing something, and then we get accused of, oh, you're just trying to do this, you're just trying to accomplish this, you don't, it's like, so, and that may go in, but the truth is, we were like they accurately perhaps were describing that we were trying to accomplish the specific thing that they were like accusing us for, as if it's like something bad or naughty. But the truth of it is that we're trying to accomplish that and a lot of other things, in relationship to that, because a lot of times the things we do and have like a much broader range of purposes and goals, and many different things are baked into it, and we can achieve a lot of different things by doing one that sort of looks like one thing, but it's actually like just a gateway to achieving many different things. Creativity, self-expression, feeling of power, feeling of being understood, communicating something special, connection. Like these are all things that are baked in to, so many of the things that we try to, express ourselves with. So as a child, when someone like cynically like accuses us of, oh, you're just trying to do this, huh? And then that goes in, and then we like shut that part of ourselves off because they're like, oh, well, maybe they're right. Maybe I am just trying to do this thing. Then that sort of closes the door to everything else, that is sort of attached to that thing. And then, we become like this depressed, fractured human being who's like takes these circuitous routes to get their fulfillment in life. And so, this brought up another subject to me that was interesting in terms of, my personal experience with it. And, not really, sort of having lost my mother, and then, having a father who was a bit erratic, being a bit, putting it a bit mildly. But, so like children who don't have when you have parents to look up to that that love you, you always like things don't land as deeply that some rude person, some rude teacher or adult or other peer or child says to you. It hurts probably when they say these mean things, but you have your parent that you really look up to, and that's where your source is. So like they're the ultimate reality of where your self-esteem is safe, And so for a child who doesn't have, the parent figures that it can reliably view as, go back to when their self-esteem has been injured, and to feel the reassurance of, well, I'm loved here, and these are the people whose voices really matter. That child is going to be more vulnerable to like having to consider, well, if you don't trust your parents, or they're not there, you know, you're going to have to sort of consider other people's words more and give them more weight to consider, you know, are they right? You know, am I this way? You know, is this what is true about me? You know, am I, you know, lovable? Am I unlovable? You know, what is it, you know, that I have to do to feel loved, you know? Because, you know, as a child that doesn't have parents that are, you know, a reliable source of love, you're going to be more, you know, sort of looking for that love more from other people. So you're going to be more, you know, and the you know, so, and on the one hand, it makes you, you know, it gives you a certain kind of wisdom, and it forces you to be more self-reliant. But, you know, some of that self-reliance comes from the wound of, you know, looking for that love from other people, and looking, you know, giving other people more, considering their words and allowing them to go in more deeply, because you weren't able, you know, you were like wanting that love, but you couldn't get it from your parents, so you didn't trust your parents, so you sort of like look to others to see like how to balance that out inside of yourself, and to see whose words are true. And you have to build your identity from somewhere, you know, it has to come from somewhere. And so, you know, when somebody says something harsh or mean, you know, you're more likely gonna to be like, because you can't use your parents as a buffer, you know, so you like kind of lands on you, and you don't know how to, you don't necessarily have the internal voice that tells you, oh, that's okay, you know, that's just a fucking asshole, I don't need to listen to him, or, you know, her, or whoever, you know. And so, you know, these things can sit in our heads, and, you know, it can take us longer to recover from them when we're, you know, children without parents. So, yeah, I just think that's interesting, you know, how we evolve, and, you know, depending on the circumstances, you know, sort of like what we have to deal with. And yeah, just wanted to sort of record these thoughts. Anyhow, have a good one.